Welcome back, traders, to another market preview, this time for the week of April 21st. Last week, the market had a really large decline, but price behaved just as I outlined it in my past few videos. So let's see if we can predict the market for this upcoming week. Now, I have the economic calendar pulled up just to see what kind of volatility we may face this week. Monday, there's hardly any news. But Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, you can see that we do have high impact news. Tuesday starting around 10 o'clock. Wednesday, we have some high impact news at 8:30 and 10:30. But the real kicker this week is Thursday. We have GDP Thursday morning. And then Friday, we do have some high impact with core CPE at 8:30. Starting off with the dollar index on the weekly chart, we see that price has been trading in between the monthly BISI here and the monthly SIBI. And now recently, price has returned back into the monthly SIBI. Now zooming in, I'm going to take off the lines for just a second here. We see that recently the price has rallied, and originally I was looking for this weekly order block, and we see that price has traded above this order block. So now the draw on liquidity that I'm looking for will be above these highs right here. Now putting the lines back on, we can see that here I have the weekly draw on liquidity, and recently we have created a weekly BISI as well. Zoomed in on the daily chart, we see the relative highs above here is where I am marking that weekly draw on liquidity. Price had a nice rally up into this imbalance right here, and we've kind of been just consolidating slightly over here. So because we had such a nice rally, we could be looking for some sort of retracement, perhaps back into this weekly fair value gap. Now taking a closer look, we see that we have the blue lines here as that weekly fair value gap, but we also have that daily fair value gap here in green. So I could see price taking out this swing low right here just to take out a little bit more sell side liquidity, and we can rebalance this daily fair value gap a little bit more and work our way into the weekly fair value gap. Now, if we go into the fair value gap, I don't really want to see the lower half of it being traded. I want the price to just stay in the upper half of the weekly fair value gap. Now, if we take a look at the most recent price leg from this low to this high, we have equilibrium right here, and it's laying over the lower half of that weekly fair value gap. So even though I prefer not to see the lower half traded to, we could very well have that. And if we do, price could be trading back into this large daily fair value gap right here. But if that does happen, I do not want to see half of this fair value gap, the lower half, traded to. I want to see price stay within the upper half of this fair value gap and have a nice reaction to take out this high back here. If we do get that, we are looking for a higher time frame target at the weekly draw on liquidity. Here's S&P on the weekly chart, and as you can see on this nice rally up here, there wasn't really any obvious inefficiencies until we get to about over here where we see a weekly fair value gap. So that is where I'm marking my weekly draw on liquidity. I think price is going to come back to rebalance this fair value gap, and I'm even looking at this down close candle right here as an order block. I've marked out the mean threshold, and I also have a lower draw on liquidity down here should price disrespect this bullish order block. Now I want to go into the daily chart to get a little bit more detail, because with this large drop, we could see some sort of retracement before we actually come down to our weekly draw on liquidity. How far of a retracement up? Well, as you can see, there's not really any inefficiency here on the weekly chart. So I'm using these two candles here as our weekly order block. That is one potential key level that we could be reaching for. Now we gotta go into the daily chart to get a little bit more detail. Now looking on the daily chart, we can see that there's really only one obvious imbalance here. So if there's any retracement, we could be retracing here, and if I see a strong reaction down, we will be looking for sell side liquidity below this low right here and into our weekly draw on liquidity. Now we'll also keep in mind that we have that weekly order block right here, so it could come down into that weekly order block, and it could go even lower if it is really bearish. Now, if price does rally above this fair value gap, I'm not going to be too flustered because I had that weekly order block that I'm looking at as well. Price could just come up, tap the order block, and then I want to see a nice reaction lower to look for the sell slide below this low. Here we have Nasdaq on the weekly. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in. We see we had a humongous drop on the weekly chart here, and we took out the swing low below here, and back into this inefficiency on the daily that I marked out in my past two videos. Now we're currently traded into this bullish order block right here. I've marked out the main threshold. Now if we see some retracement, I want to look for inefficiencies on the daily on this leg down here, but I did mark out the weekly order block. Now if price does retrace and we see a strong reaction down, I will be looking for sell side below this low here, midpoint of this order block, and then the swing low down here as my weekly draw on liquidity. Here on the daily, we can see that if we do get retracement higher, there is 1, 2, 3 inefficiencies that we could be reaching up into. This one lines up well with that weekly order block, so I do not want to see this being traded through. This will be the last line of defense for me. But we could be reaching for the second inefficiency right here. It does have a up close candle, so this is also kind of likely. Also, it is kind of close to halfway between this high and this low. You can see it's very near equilibrium, so we could be reaching into this order block right here. Now, of course, this lower inefficiency is rather large as well. We could just see a nice reaction off of this one, but because we have other higher premiums, it's not unreasonable to see price reaching for a higher price level. Now, if we do get a strong reaction lower, I will be looking for sell side below this swing low if this swing low remains intact. But then we also have this swing low right here with a nice imbalance just underneath it. So this could definitely be a nice partial to take. And then of course we have our weekly draw on liquidity, which is this swing low back here earlier in January. So that's what I'm thinking this week. I would like to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to help support this channel. I greatly appreciate it. Also, if you haven't heard, I am leaving on a trip for Thailand next week, so I won't have the time to pump out any more of those prop firm videos for a while. But I will be keeping up with my weekly previews, so you can still look forward to those. However, the audio quality may be a little bit worse than normal, so I do apologize for that. And until next time guys, safe trading.